Good day, future nurses. This is Doc A, and today we are diving into a topic that is deeply painful, but one that we must confront with courage and compassion. And this is about abuse and violence, particularly elder abuse and rape. Before, during our face to face classes, we were able to discuss child abuse and even the intimate partner violence. So basically, these things are not just legal or social issues, but I think they are also nursing issues. Why? Because we are often the first one to see the signs like the bruises, the silence, the fear in the eyes of the patient who cannot speak up. Elder abuse can come in many forms. It could be physical, it could be emotional, financial, or even neglect. And rape, it is not only a physical violence, it is a deep trauma that affects the whole person, their body, mind, and soul. So, as nurses, we are advocates, we are protectors, and our role goes beyond care. We also listen, we observe, we report, and we stand up when our patients can't. So let today's lesson be a reminder that being a nurse means being a voice to the voiceless, a safe space for the vulnerable, and a light in someone's darkest moment. So I think everyone is ready, and let's begin with our topic. So basically, this sign is known as our signal sign for abuse and violence. So always remember that violence does not only happens outside our houses, it also happens inside our home. So we need to teach each and everyone, especially the children, to know this signal. So use this signal to ask for help, okay, so that they could be able to call help without even any digital traces. So first, you just need to have the palm to camera, then tap the thumb, then trap the thumb. So basically, we do this, and that is our hand signal that we are experiencing abuse and violence. Okay, so just like what I have stated a while ago, our first topic for this moment is about the elder abuse. So, as what we can see on our slide, um, elder abuse is a violence or any other type of harm because of older age. It can be carried out by those who are close to the older people, like their family members or the caregivers, or by the social structures and institutions. So we could also see here on our slide that one in every six older women and men worldwide could experience abuse. However, 4% were reported. So despite this, elder abuse remains invisible. Okay, because basically not all cases are being reported. So other authors are telling that when we talk about elder abuse, basically we're talking about the maltreatment of older adults. And usually the one who's maltreating them are family members or those people who are taking the caregiving roles. So it may include physical, emotional, sexual, neglect, and even financial abuses. Okay, and sometimes even small things like denial of adequate medical treatment among older adults could also be a part of elder abuse. So it is estimated that 1 in 10 people over 65 years old are injured, are exploited, or abused, or neglected. And most victims of our elder abuse are 75 years old or older. And 60 to 65% of these cases are women. So abuse is more likely when the elder has multiple chronic mental and physical health problems. Sometimes it also happens when he or she is very dependent on others in terms of food, medical care, and various activities in terms of their activities of daily living. So just like what I have stated a while ago, there are different types of elder abuse. And these types could be our physical abuse. Okay, so this is the physical abuse. So when we talk about physical abuse, it could be hitting or shoving, inappropriate use of drugs, or restraining the elderly into a confinement. So sometimes what we can see among patients or elderly who are experiencing physical abuse, they have frequent and explained injuries that are accompanied by a habit of seeking medical assistance from various locations. Sometimes we could also take note that they are reluctant to seek medical treatment for the injuries, or they even deny the existence of those physical injuries. Sometimes we could also take note that this elderly has disorientation, or they could experience grogginess that indicates that there is a misuse of the medication. And another thing that we could also see among patients with physical abuse is that they have a fear or edginess in the presence of family members or caregiver. Okay, so another type of abuse that we have for the elderly is the emotional. And sometimes we could also take it as psychosocial abuse. Okay, so here what we can see usually are intimidations, humiliations, or routine blaming the elder adult, or sometimes there is repeatedly ignoring the wishes of this older persons. And we could also notice that they are starting to isolate themselves, or they are being isolated by their family members or caregivers from their friends or their activities. So aside from those things, sometimes we could also take note that this elderly has changes in terms of their general mood, in terms of the usual behavior that they have. Um, Sometimes there is also a feeling of helplessness and sudden lack of contact from other people outside the elder's home. In some cases, there are also some hesitancy in terms of talking openly. They could also see, or they could also manifest some anger and agitation. And we could also take note that sometimes elderly are also experiencing withdrawal or depression behaviors. Okay? So aside from those, another possible thing that they could experience is the financial abuse. Okay, so when we talk about financial abuse, most likely the people surrounding them are they're trying to manipulate, or they're trying to persuade them to do certain things in terms of their financial capabilities. So for example, they are using the older person's money or property, or sometimes they are the caregivers or the family members are the one who are making financial decisions on behalf of this elderly without their informed consents. So other possible things that we could observe if the elderly is experiencing financial abuse is probably the unpaid bills, frequent withdrawal on their bank accounts. Another thing is frequent changing of our last will and testaments, okay, or sudden disposal or sudden sale of the elderly's properties and possessions, and probably signatures on their checks that would differ from the actual signature of the elder adults. So those things could um, we could sense that these elder adults could be experiencing elder abuse if those things are happening. For another example, maybe are missing valuable belongings, or sometimes, usually, the valuable things are often misplaced and they cannot find it. Okay, so another example of, or another type of physical, or sorry, of elder abuse is neglect. Okay, so it could be intentional or unintentional, wherein there could be a denial of food, water, shelter, clothing, and assistance with the daily living task and any other essential needs of this elderly. Okay, so other things that we could take note for us to suspect that the older adult are experiencing elder abuse. For example, they have a poor personal hygiene, if they lack of the needed medications, if they are usually dirty with fecal and urine smell, or other hazards in the elder's living environment. If we could see some rashes, lice, sores, and the likes in our elders. So those things could be an indication that this elderly are experiencing elder abuse. Okay, so sometimes there is also a self-neglect. So when we talk about self-neglect, this is the inability of the elder adult to manage their personal finances. So there could be some hoardings or giving away of their money while not paying the bills that they need. So that is an example of self-neglect. So inability to manage their ADLs, they cannot do the personal care, shopping or groceries, or even housework failures. So it could also be an indication of self-neglect. Okay? And lastly, of course, we also have sexual abuse. Yes, even elderlies could also experience sexual abuses. If you're going to look at with the news, it is not only younger who could experience sexual abuses and harassments, but even elderlies. So when we talk about sexual abuses among elderlies, so this could include sexual harassment, sexual activity without informed consent, and forcing the older person to watch sexual acts or to undress without their consent are still considered sexual abuses. Okay? So what could be the treatment? What are the things that we could do? First and foremost, we need to make sure and look for the safety of the elder. Okay, so what can we do with that? Maybe we can coordinate with the DSWD, or if this happens on one of the houses of their children or on their own house, maybe we could also coordinate with the other children. Okay, just to look and to make sure that the older adults could be safe. Okay, another thing that we could do is to relieve the caregiver's stress. So maybe they need, or we need to provide additional resources. Okay, it may help correct the abusive situation. For example, I'm not really saying that it is okay to abuse the elder adults. However, if you are already living with someone and you could see the deterioration on that person. Okay, so most likely we could experience stress and we could be fed up of the situation. So maybe that is why some caregivers and family members would be able to do such a thing. Okay, however, that is not a reason. What we could do is to look for alternative ways. Okay? Alternative ways. If it doesn't work, most likely we need to remove the elder or even the caregiver, or what is necessary. Okay, we need to look for someone who was going to take care of that elder. So for example, if there are 5 children, and that elderly is living for almost a year on or 2 or 5 years already with that specific child. So most likely after a while, they would feel the pressure. Okay, so maybe one of the options is tell, or we can talk to all of the family members and they could have their routine um, period of time for them to take care of the elder adult. So maybe for the child one, 1 month, then after a month, the elder adult could move to child two, then on the next month, child three, so on and so forth. So with that, I think the stresses and the pressure that they are experiencing will be relieved from the caregiver. And with that, they could also see the importance and they could also be longing for the presence of that elder. Okay, so yeah, so basically, first, safety of the elder, we need to take that, and to help also the caregiver to relieve the stresses that they are experiencing. Okay, so basically, we are done with elder abuse. So at this point, let's move on with our second topic. So this is about rape. So basically, rape, when we talk about rape, this is an act of sexual intercourse. So take note of that. It is a sexual intercourse with a person against his or her will and without consent. So obviously, if that is against his or her own will, so it means that there is no consent. Okay? And most likely, it is done through force or fear or through the use of drugs or intoxicants. Okay? So always remember that rape is a crime of violence and humiliation of the victim that are being expressed through sexual means. So rape is the penetration, okay? There is a need to have a penetration for it to be considered as rape, okay? So there is a penetration of an act of sexual intercourse with a person against his or her own will. Okay, so what else? What are the other things that we need to remember? By the way, it is still considered rape if the victim is incapable of exercising rational judgment. So, for example, the perpetrator is telling that the rape victim is his or her lover. They have a relationship. However, if they have mental deficiencies, so it is still considered rape. Okay. Another thing, if the child or if the person is below the majority age, so it is still considered as rape. And we call that type of rape as statutory rape. Okay. So going to our next slide, here we could see the crime of rape requisites. So for it to become rape and a crime of rape, it requires the following. First, there should be a penetration, an actual penetration, even though it is a slight penetration, even just on the outer vulva or on the outer rectum. So as long as there is an actual penetration, it could be a requisite for rape. So with or without the full erection and with or without ejaculation, as long as there is something that have been inserted into the vulva or into the rectum of another person, it could be still included as one of the requisites. So that is actual penetration. So second, there is the use of force, threat, or fear, or maybe just like what I have stated a while ago, if there is a use of drugs or intoxications before they did the act, so it could be considered as rape. And lastly, lack of consent. Okay, so the other person is not giving their consent. They don't like what is happening, so it is still considered as rape. Okay, so nowadays, I just want to tell you to be careful because there are things like date rape. On the first meeting, you could be with the use of drugs and other um, intoxicants. So you could be a victim of rape or just an acquaintance rape. So first meeting. Okay, and it does not only pertains among female. So male rape can also happen. Okay. So, by the way, when you are a victim of rape, it could lead to a post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is called as the rape trauma syndrome or the RTS. So, RTS or rape trauma syndrome is a group of signs and symptoms experienced by the victim in reaction to rape. Okay, so if they are experiencing RTS, so there are phases that they could experience. Okay, so the first phase is the acute phase. So basically, after the act, after the deed, they could experience shock. Okay, meaning to say that they could feel numbness. They could feel that they are outside their bodies. And usually, this time they are trying or they might be crying. Okay. In some of the movies and the usual things that we could see, rape victims usually take a bath after they are trying to scrub their body because they think and they feel that they are very dirty. Okay. So after the acute phase, we have the denial. So they are trying to suppress what they have experienced. They're trying to take it out on their mind. However, as they do that, there could be a heightened anxiety. So how are we going to know that the victim is already on the heightened anxiety? If they experience nightmares, meaning to say that um, they always see and they have flashbacks of what happened even though they are sleeping, so that could be a nightmare, or they already experience a trauma or fear on certain areas like small alleys, dark pathways, and the likes. However, what we need and what we wanted them to have is that after all of those experiences, they could be able to reorganize, meaning to say that they will be trying to live normally, and that is the reorganization phase. Okay, so again, we have four phases of the RTS: acute phase, so they are in shock; denial, usually there is suppression; heightened anxiety, they experience fear and nightmares; and the reorganization, moving or trying to move forward. Okay? So when it comes to our law, so we have the RA 8353 or the anti-rape law. So just like what we have discussed a while ago, so they tried also to define rape. So rape is an act, it is an act of sexual assault by inserting his penis or the penis into another person's mouth, genital, or anal orifice, or any instrument or object into the genital or anal orifice of another person. That is why if you're going to notice, a while ago, I have stated that it is still rape as long as there is penetration with or without fully full erection and ejaculation. Okay. So meaning to say, as long as there is something that is inserted or penetrated a person's genital and rectum, could be considered as one of the requisites of rape. Okay? So here we could also see that by a man who shall have carnal knowledge of a woman under any of the following circumstances, they could be subjected or they could be sued rape, like if they have used force, threat, or intimidation, when the offended party is deprived of reason or otherwise unconscious. So that is why I have stated if it is not only the use of threat or force, but if other persons use drugs or any intoxicants, so it could still be considered as rape. So by means of fraudulent machinations or grave abuse of authority, so one uses his or her authority over the other person for them to do the act. So it is still considered as rape. And with the offended party is under 12 years of age. Okay, so automatically that is rape. So for our interventions, so things that we can do if ever we are in the clinical area and we are the one who's responding or taking care of patients who were able to experience rape. So one, we need to provide safety and space. Okay, we need to make sure that our client or this patient would feel that they are safe. Okay, and if you're noticing, I'm telling that it is provide safety and space. So make sure we do not move abruptly. Okay. We always need to ask for their consent. We always need to ask and tell them things that we are going to do so that they are aware of. Okay. And for example, if you're a male nurses, make sure as much as possible if the victim is a female, so make sure that the one who's going to provide and to talk to them and to take care of them as much as possible are women or female nurses. Okay. So for example, if you will notice, so the next intervention that we need to do is the preservation of evidence. So, for example, if the doctor that is on duty is a male doctor, so make sure that the nurse who will accompany the doctor is female. Okay? So that at least the patient will feel that they are safe. Okay, so in preservation of evidence, most likely we need to do the physical examination at the same time. Since this is a rape case, so most likely a medical legal should also be done. Okay, so basically the preservation of evidence and physical examination should occur before the victim have their shower or before they brush their teeth or cleanse their body or have a douche or wash their genitals or even changing their clothes. Okay, so we are not also offering first something to drink because these things, if done, it might ruin the possible evidences. Okay. So after that, we also need to provide emotional support to the victim and encourage verbalization of feelings. So as nurses, we should allow the victim to proceed at his or her own pace and not rush through any interview or examination procedure. So giving as much control as possible back to the victim is highly recommended. Okay. And just like what I have stated a while ago, always ask for consent for everything to be done. Okay, so do you have any questions? Are we good? And are we clear with the last two discussions in terms of abuse and violence? Again, this session, we were able to discuss the both rape and elder abuse. So with that, I'm hoping that you will be able to understand and have a grasp of the things that we need to do if ever we encounter such case. So thank you very much for listening. Hoping that everything is good and fine. God bless everyone and see you on our next discussion.